I've got a question. Why do most people, after experience something that's negative and it's undesired by them, and they probably never identified themselves with those things in the first place before they happen, but how come that afterwards most people turn to themselves and they start to question their... It's almost in a way that if you get your hands dirty, it's always the hands problem, not the dirt. I've always had that question. I do have those questions for myself, and I know I've done them when I was younger, and I have no doubt that I'll probably do it, no matter how old I am or how experienced I am. This is like an automatic thing. When something's out of control, you always focus on the things that you can control, and your self-value is one of those variables that you always turn to. It's almost
that's really
automatic.
Yeah. Well, it is automatic.
Yeah.
And in CBT, one of the core things, it's called automatic thoughts.
Yeah.
It's the first thought that comes to mind. It's very rarely helpful or realistic. But before we get too much into that, it's really interesting what you said about, something happens and, we start to look inward and, look for perhaps what our role was in it. But, not everyone's like that. There are actually people that have the opposite, where they look
outward
and blame others.
Right.
Yeah, they don't take responsibility. And the point is that neither are helpful.
No.
And, this is, sort of a concrete black and white sort of thinking. It's a bit of a rigid, inflexible way to think about life. There'll be situations and events that are our fault.
Yeah.
Or, 60% our fault, 40% external,
Simply because you were there that day, that time.
Yeah. And sometimes there are things that aren't our fault. And we have to get good at sort of deciphering the different situations so that we don't fall into the trap of self-blame.
Yeah.
Or don't become someone who, obfuscates or just denies any responsibility for things.
Yeah. What's the most challenging part of your everyday? Would you say it's dealing with different characters, or the sheer amount of frequency that it comes in, or would you say that the intensity of each case? Would you bring them?
It's a really good question, and a lot of people ask that question or variants of it. I'll say from the outset, I love my job.
Yeah.
And I feel very blessed to be able to do my job. We talk about dream jobs, and people talk about, being a professional surfer or a rock star, and of course they'd be pretty cool as well. But I really love the fact that I'm able to help people in my role, and feel like I am making a difference at the end of the day. You develop the skill. I can't remember necessarily being taught hours and hours, special techniques to shield or protect yourself as a therapist.
Yeah.
It either comes up naturally or you work out your own strategies, but you can't literally sit and take on other people's emotions. You be caring and understanding and connected with them.
Yeah.
And supportive, 100%. You need to be.
Yeah.
But you can't take on their pain.
No, and that's what's it called, about setting up boundaries, or learn how to disassociate? or not to take things personally.
Yeah, I just think it's something different again.
Mm.
Honestly, I mean, some of the things that you're taught, when I look back, you know, we're warned against something called the emotional contagion, you know, becoming infected, or the idea of emotions being contagious. And it's not because we want to be cold and clinical. It's because you just literally could not last. You would burn out very quickly.
Wow.
And so we're taught, you know, a simple thing of, at times, you know, putting on your sort of clinician hat or scientist hat or whatever it is. And so looking at situations objectively and taking down all the information and thinking, you know, how can I help this person? And getting really upset with them on the spot is not going to help them. Having said that, there are situations that strike a chord. We're human.
Yeah.
We're human. And getting back to your, I guess, the original question, some of the things that you find hardest are things that involve children.
Yeah.
Or vulnerable people in general.
Yeah.
Things where you don't have a direct ability to necessarily influence the outcomes. You feel a bit powerless some ways as a psychologist. You know, the client is telling you about other things going on, and yeah, as a person you want to help, but you can't always. And again, you need to develop a bit of a skill, a bit of a thought process about, you know, if I'm going to see this person 5 times, you know, for example, working in a hospital, they could get discharged the next day. You don't always know as a therapist. You just turn up and they've been discharged. But you go in with the mindset of, you know, how can I make a positive impact on this person?
Yeah.
In an hour,
within
3 sessions, and you try not to take on and try and solve all of their problems.
Because you do have to believe that they have their natural human power to solve their own problems, but there were times and opportunities and duty that you were there 3 times or 6 times that you guide them.
Absolutely. There's around the same time as behaviorism and CBT were emerging, there was the humanistic approach as well, Carl Rogers, and fascinating stuff. One of his core precepts was no one knows themselves better than the client. And I truly believe that. I truly believe that. They took it to the next level, though, where they wouldn't offer advice, so to speak, or much guidance at all. It was all about helping the client to look inwards and find their own solutions.
To listen to them.
Yeah.
To get them talking, and then that puts them on a thinking path, and then see where that goes.
Whereas CBT is a lot more directive. A lot more directive. And so I tend to work from a basis of somewhere in between. But people do quite often know what's best.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a truism for people. However, for some people, they either don't have the confidence or they've had other things go on in their life. You know, they might be addicted to drugs.
Yeah.
They might have been in long-term domestic violent relationships. They might have brain injury. You know, that's my area of specialty. I work with a lot of people, brain injuries, and you know, their thinking is impaired, and so maybe they need a bit more support with some things. But,
Yeah.
but yeah, at the heart of it, you know, when you strip it all back, depression, I guess, could be viewed as someone who hasn't yet realized what's going to make them happy in life, or they have and haven't been able to achieve it. And it's not up to me necessarily to say, hey, try this. I think you'd be a great baker. Go to TAFE. You know, nothing like that. We sort of try and look past the activities that people could do and try and identify what their values are. You know, do they get satisfaction?
Yeah.
Do they get joy out of helping others, or out of discovering things, making things?
Yeah.
And then once you just work out what really make people happy,
Yeah.
and it's different for different people, then you can start to talk about, well, how might that play out in their world around them. It might be baking.
Maybe baking.
Might be baking and giving bread out to people, you know.
Or giving.
That can't afford it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Might be creating huge, exquisite wedding cakes that just, you know, jaw-dropping wedding cakes, you know. There's no judgment. It's whatever people want to do, whatever brings them joy.